Coming in at number 10, we have the head of the demon, aka Ra's al Ghul. The leader of a criminal organization known as the League of Assassins, Ra's al Ghul is over 600 years old and dedicated to wiping out most of humanity in an effort to cleanse the planet of disease and pollution. The secret to his long life and the reason he earns a spot on this list is his mastery of the Lazarus Pits, mythical locations connected to ley lines that are capable of resurrecting the recently deceased and have kept Ra's al Ghul essentially immortal for over half a millennium. Combine that with the endless resources and followers that Ra's al Ghul has gained over the years, and you have quite the formidable villain. At number 9, we have Bane, the man who broke the bat. A brilliant warrior who was raised from childhood inside an island prison, Bane's most notable act was when he systematically weakened Batman's support system and eventually faced and bested him in single combat, shattering Bruce Wayne's spine over his knee. This victory over the Dark Knight was only temporary, but has still given Bane an intimidating reputation that he more than lives up to, going on to become a supervillain crime boss and always looking forward to another rematch where perhaps he can break more than just Batman's spine. Coming in at number 8, we've got to go with the super assassin Deathstroke. While in recent years the infamous Slade Wilson has become more well known for tormenting the Teen Titans, Deathstroke has also had many run-ins with the Justice League and the Dark Knight himself. With his brain operating at 9 times the efficiency of a normal human being, Deathstroke is exactly the type of opponent that pushes Batman to his physical limits with a complete mastery of every weapon at his disposal. Combine that with his icon suit, which has been shown to even be able to withstand a punch from Superman, and this is a foe that Batman is always just barely able to outwit.
And it's 7, Parasite. The Raymond Maxwell Jensen version of the Parasite first appeared in Action Comics number 340 from 1966, and is basically like some weird form of mind melder that has the ability to temporarily absorb the life energy, superpowers, and knowledge of their victim. The character was actually created by Jim Shooter, who was 13 when he thought of the character. Following an encounter with a strange visitor, however, the Parasite's powers were enhanced and enabled him to retain the energy he takes for longer, as well as granting Jones, the next Parasite, the ability to shapeshift. He can now physically morph into his victims right down to their DNA, being able to access their memories, gain their natural abilities, and mimic their voice, which I think is pretty damn dangerous. At least it only lasts for a certain length of time though. However, Parasite also absorbs the weaknesses of superpowered individuals, even if someone else he absorbs has an immunity to it.
Coming in at number 6, we've got to go with CLAYFACE. When you're facing off against the world's greatest detective, being able to disguise yourself as anyone seems like a very useful skill to have. This alone would make CLAYFACE a difficult foe for Batman to overcome, but combine that with the huge amounts of physical strength that CLAYFACE possesses when he changes into his more monstrous form, and you have a rare mix of stealth and strength that keeps Bruce Wayne on his toes, usually forcing him to rely on a creative use of water to finally stop CLAYFACE in his very muddy tracks.
Halfway through into number 5, Brick. Brick is certainly an interesting guy. Daniel Brickwell was originally a low-level henchman or enforcer for various mobsters in Star City, and also ran his own street gang. However, he had a brilliant criminal mind and higher aspirations to go with it. We love a dreamer. In the wake of a demonic attack against Star City, he began to expand his gang's criminal activities, particularly illicit substances sales, and push them into areas left vacant by other criminal organizations. However, this guy also has a power, first being introduced in Green Arrow Volume 3 number 40 from 2004, Brick is literally made of brick. In essence, the DC version of the Thing, but a bad guy. Which is a stark counter to his Arrowverse counterpart, who was just a mob boss introduced in Season 3, even though metahumans were introduced into the Arrowverse that season as well, because Flash Season 1 had started at that point. They could have just put him in Star City and made him a brick, but oh well. In the comics though, Green Arrow challenged Brick to a duel over who owned Star City. He shot a glue arrow into the back of Brick's mouth, blocking his throat and suffocating him, but rather than allowing him to die, Green Arrow saved him, warning him that if he steps too far out of line again, next time he's gonna die. But since this incident, his interference with law enforcement and the political figures of Star City had either ceased or vastly subsided, which I have to say is a pretty sexy power move from Oliver.
Coming in at number 4. A troublesome imp from the same 5th dimension as the Superman villain Mr. Mxyzptlk, the Bat-Mite is honestly more of a nuisance than a flat-out supervillain, often appearing just to try and challenge Batman or to see more of his heroic acts. Sending Bat-Mite back to his own dimension is usually a tall order, given his complete reality warping powers, but luckily, the world's greatest detective is usually smart enough to outwit Bat-Mite and send him packing to where he truly belongs.
Getting close to the end in at number 3, Brainiac. First introduced in Action Comics number 242 from 1958, Brainiac is one of Superman's greatest villains and has a personal connection with the hero, since he shrunk and stole the capital city of Krypton, known as Kandor, and in some continuities is even responsible for Krypton's destruction. Brainiac's most consistent power is his 12th level intellect, allowing calculation abilities, enhanced memory, and advanced understanding of mechanical engineering, bioengineering, physics, and other theoretical and applied sciences, as well as extensive knowledge of various alien tech, because of course he does. And while that sounds confusing, we as a 21st century society are considered to have a 9th level intellect. Or as his post-crisis version explains, he can process the sort of knowledge over 490 octodectillion beings could, which is absolutely monstrous, okay? Just so you can see it, that's about 490 with another 59 zeros after it people worth of human brain power that he uses on a regular basis. So yeah, he's definitely a smart cookie, but not the one that they use in Squid Game. Is that still a popular thing?
Coming in at number 2, we have the Batman who laughs. Now, you obviously can't have a Batman villains list without at least somewhat referencing the Joker, but this wild combination of Bruce Wayne and his greatest foe might just give Mr. J a run for his money when it comes to power. In a dark, alternate world where the Joker realizes he's dying and begins a mass killing spree of everyone in Gotham, Batman is forced to finally kill his fated foe. Unfortunately, at the moment of death, Bruce was infected with a special brand of Joker venom that completely flipped his moral compass, but left intact all of his intelligence and planning. All of the chaos of the Joker with the brains of Batman. This supervillain is Batman's worst nightmare come to life, and has only been able to be defeated with the entire help of the Bat family. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have one of the biggest bads in the entire DC Omniverse, Darkseid. The leader of Apocalypse and one of the more feared villains that the Justice League has ever faced, Darkseid is known to even be capable of defeating the usually unstoppable Superman in direct combat. You would think that a normal human being with no superhuman abilities would be completely ineffective against an evil god like Darkseid. However, during the event known as Final Crisis, with the entire fate of the universe at stake, Batman finally broke his no guns rule and fired a bullet of radion energy into Darkseid's heart, wounding him enough to stop the Final Crisis. And while Batman may have temporarily been believed to be dead due to being hit with Darkseid's Omega beams, it wasn't long before the Dark Knight had returned and proven that even ultimate evil isn't enough to keep him down.
And at 10, Cupid. First appearing in Green Arrow and Black Canary number 15 from 2009, Carrie Cutter, also known as Cupid, is a deranged Green Arrow attempted mimic, even if she isn't really that good with a bow in the comics, and former Special Ops soldier. Cupid first showed up in Star City at a scene of one of the Green Arrow's fights. She picked up the broken tip of one of his arrows and carved the infamous heart with an arrow through it onto her chest. She then began killing off some of his notable enemies in the hope that she may begin to fulfill his heart's desire. And she killed the guy who cut her hair because she never wanted someone else to have hair that perfect. Yeah, Cupid is in essence Oliver's Joker in a way, since there is no Cupid without Green Arrow, and let's be honest, they're both absolutely nuts. The character did appear in the show, however was not nearly as crazy, and quickly turned her affection to Deadshot after joining the Suicide Squad. Cupid being obsessed with Arrow was kind of like a 1 to 2 episode thing in the show. And at 9, Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia was introduced in Green Arrow number 12 from 2002 and was created by Kevin Smith and Phil Hester. Onomatopoeia first appears when he murders a female crime fighter named Vertigo, after telling her his name. The interlude in which this occurs serves as a lead into The Sounds of Violence, and is the main villain of a short storyline that runs from issues 13 to 15 of that Green Arrow run, which is called The Sounds of Violence. Just the sheer ridiculousness of this character is enough to earn him a spot on this list for me though. And the great thing is that this character only works in comic books unless you give him like superpowers. Saying bang in a cinematic setting only makes for an awkward moment after a real gunshot unless you saying bang actually makes a gunshot. Since in movies gunshots sound nothing like that and you can't really make that sound with your mouth. Onomatopoeia just talks in onomatopoeia, which is spelling out sounds like bang or crack or snap. And this character is something I really find interesting for this reason. Plus, this man looks like he's a guard from Squid Game with like his mask thing. Look, I wonder where Squid Game got the idea, and I think it was this guy. And at 8, Prometheus. Created by Grant Morrison and Arne Jorgensen, the most recognized version of Prometheus made his first appearance in New Year's Evil Prometheus from 1998. Commonly an adversary of the Justice League, Prometheus would also serve as an enemy to Batman, Green Arrow, and Midnighter. Prometheus possesses no superhuman abilities, but has undergone intense physical and mental training and utilizes an extensive range of equipment and technology, just like Batman does. However, Prometheus is probably the most known in the Green Arrow community for being the start of the Trial of Green Arrow storyline, commonly known as the worst Green Arrow storyline of all time, where Oliver kills Prometheus after he bombs Star City, kills Roy's daughter and cuts off Roy's arm, and then Oliver gets put on trial for murder. The character also appeared in the Arrowverse as Assistant District Attorney Adrian Chase, which some assumed was going to be revealed as Vigilante, but Adrian Chase just turned out to be an alias used by Justin Claiborne's son after plotting revenge after the Arrow killed his father off screen in season 1. Yeah.
Coming in at number 7, we have The Predator. And no, I can assure you, you didn't accidentally switch over to an 80s movie themed YouTube channel. In a crossover event during the 90s, Gotham City found itself being used as the hunting ground by a member of the Predator race. Seeking out impressive warriors to fight, the Predator nearly started a civil war amongst Gotham's criminal underworld by killing some of the gangsters' best fighters, and even managing to put an intervening Batman into a full-body cast. Batman soon recovered, however, and was able to defeat the Predator and convince his race to leave Gotham alone by using a high-tech suit capable of seeing through the Predator's cloaking. Aliens being defeated by sonar-powered bat gadgets? Don't you just love comic books?
And at 6, Constantine DRAKON. First appearing in Green Arrow Volume 3, number 27 in 2003, Constantine DRAKON is a short guy, much like myself prior to grade 11. As a child, he was teased for this by other children, but once he started killing people at the age of 10, he found that he was no longer sensitive about his stature, which I guess is understandable, because like, why would you care if you're being made fun of if you could just kill them, right? I mean, it solves the problem. But when troll-like monsters began to terrorize the Elvast Corporation's construction sites, the company hired DRAKON to take care of it. However, he ran into the Green Arrow, who was also investigating the monsters. DRAKON was able to defeat Oliver, however he didn't kill him because he wasn't getting paid enough yet. He then seemed to act as if he was on retainer for Elvast, killing Black Lightning's niece because she discovered information that proved the troll monsters were actually created by Elvast through an imperfect vaccine side effect. Oh god, I can hear the comments now. In the TV show, DRAKON was Adam Hunt's head of security, and later on an assassin version of the character popped up played by a different actor. That was in season 3, and they thought that he had killed Sarah Lance, but I don't know if they intended for that to be the same character. On the wikis, they're like kind of interchangeable. It depends on who you ask. Halfway through, in at number 5, BIZARRO. Being first introduced in Superboy number 68 from 1958, BIZARRO was actually a teen at first. However, an adult version of the character was introduced in the Superman newspaper comic strip, but he was wearing a B on his chest instead of an S. However, in 1959, we saw an adult version of the character introduced into the Superman comic books, this time wearing an S in Action Comics number 254. Despite his complicated history though, BIZARRO has all the powers of Superman except reversed. So instead of heat vision, he has freeze vision, flame breath, vacuum breath. Imagine a freaking BIZARRO vacuum. That would be blessed. Why hasn't anyone branded vacuums like that yet? Like, this is an untapped market. And yes, I do mean actual vacuums, you sickos. And his other abilities are also flipped, like being able to see through only lead. And BIZARRO is strengthened by green kryptonite, which only makes things worse for normal soups. Am I right? While BIZARRO never really seems to come out on top, does that mean that since everything for him is reversed that he's actually winning all the time? Because if that is the case, I don't know if he should be on this list, because in his mind technically he would be undefeated, right? And at 4, MERLYN. Long before becoming the vigilante Green Arrow, Oliver Queen was inspired to take up archery after hearing of the exploits of Arthur King, otherwise known as Merlin the Magician, a master archer with acute accuracy. Years later, Merlin challenged the Green Arrow to a public archery duel and defeated Oliver. With that victory under his belt, Merlin vanished for years before resurfacing as a member of the League of Assassins. He and Green Arrow faced off against each other again when Merlin attempted to assassinate Batman, but Green Arrow managed to intercept Merlin's arrow with one of his own, saving Batman's life. Merlin admitted that Green Arrow had improved since their last encounter, but he escaped before he could be captured. In the show, the Dark Archer is played by John Barrowman and is named Malcolm Merlyn, CEO of Merlyn Global Group and father to Tommy Merlyn and, spoiler alert for season 2, Thea Queen. He is a recurring character in the first 5 seasons and is a villain in most of his appearances, with the exception of a couple times throughout when it served his better interests. Spoiler alert yet again for season 5 because I feel obligated to because it's my favorite show. He ultimately dies in Lian Yu after Thea activates a landmine and he takes her place on it. They were lured there by Adrian Chase aka Prometheus so that Oliver could save his son, but yeah. If you haven't seen Arrow, go watch it, please.
Coming in at number 3, we've got Poison Ivy, one of the villains most associated with Batman, but who may have been hiding her power levels just a little bit. Poison Ivy has always been dead set on protecting the green plant life of the Earth, and especially values it over human life. In a particularly noteworthy case, Poison Ivy was able to mind control essentially the entire human population through their consumption of fruits and vegetables. And while that's definitely some weird comic book logic, Batman was only barely able to defeat her by bringing her into contact with the one human being she cares about the most, Harley Quinn. You gotta love when love saves the day.
Penultimately, in at number 2, Deathstroke. Being introduced in the new Teen Titans number 2 in 1980 as Deathstroke the Terminator, Deathstroke is often seen as the archenemy to the Teen Titans. However, the character has also served as a villain for Batman, Green Arrow, and the Justice League, and is the main antagonist of Arrow Season 2. The show seems to be a more powerful version though when talking about brute strength, since his blood at this point contains Mirakuru, a basically super soldier serum that was ironically again found on Lian Yu and used to save Slade's life. After the Mirakuru is in his bloodstream though, he develops serious anger issues, and this is actually tied to his strength. The character returns in season 2 to extract revenge on Oliver by killing the ones he loves, but was ultimately defeated after Felicity injects him with the Mirakuru cure. The character then regains possession of all his marbles and helps Oliver in the season 5 finale, as well as having his own arc to find his son in season 6. Oliver helps Slade do this though, even though Slade killed Oliver's mother in the season 2 episode Seeing Red, but using a deleted scene from season 2, Oliver saves his mother in the post-crisis timeline that he creates, which is honestly something that I can respect. If you're recreating the universe, or the multiverse even, you might as well resurrect your dead friends and family, if you can. Finally, in at number 1, the Anti-Monitor. This is a show exclusive as far as I'm aware, since this played out totally differently in the comics. However, in the Arrowverse Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event, Oliver dies while trying to save as many people from Earth 38 as possible, resulting in over 3 billion lives being saved while he held off the Shadow Demons. Later on though, Oliver, instead of being resurrected by the Lazarus Pit and having his soul restored to his body, ends up becoming the Spectre, a pseudo-god in the DC universe and the catalyst to restoring the multiverse in this crossover. This also comes with a wicked set of powers, but nonetheless in a one-on-one fight Oliver both held his own and beat the Anti-Monitor head to head, which is freaking nuts. This man had literally wiped out the multiverse, and yet here we are with a new set of Earths because Oliver, with the help of the Paragons, willed it so. The battle was wicked, the death was heartbreaking, yet either way Oliver managed to defeat what was in essence a god, the god of the antimatter universe certainly, and gain some sweet powers to boot. Attaboy Oliver, you're who I pray to now. In at 10, Lex Luthor. While you can't really have a list of Superman villains without Lex, the character isn't all that powerful when you look at it. Like sure, he's popular among fans and runs a business so he has some pull in society and whatnot, but in reality he's just the dude with mommy issues that is just jealous of Superman. Sure, at some points he may wear and pilot a mech suit that gives him advanced weaponry and whatnot, but otherwise he's just a guy who pays other guys to fight for him. Which I mean, like, like, in a sense, money is power, but like when compared to other people on this list, and even compared to Superman, Lex doesn't really have much going for him, aside from maybe a little bit of kryptonite. But Lex is constantly losing to Supes as well, which only makes him angrier, and that's just funny as hell to me. We love it when a jerk gets mad because he didn't get what he wants. Lex is kind of like a brat, you know, like the kind of brat that will team up with their parents to take out the town's crazy dude if they need to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, any kid's movie basically has one of these characters. Spiderwick Chronicles, okay, the big sister is pretty much like this. She's like that until she gets her leg bit by a goblin and realizes that her brothers ain't crazy. That's Lex. And at 9, Steppenwolf. Because everyone prefers the theatrical version of Justice League, right? Steppenwolf was introduced in New Gods number 7 from 1972 and is a new god and military general from the planet Apocalypse. Steppenwolf is the brother of Hegra and therefore the maternal uncle of Darkseid, which is like a really weird family dynamic given that he is commonly depicted as Darkseid's subordinate, commanding his nephew's army of parademons in conflict against Superman and the Justice League. In the theatrical version of the Justice League movie, Steppenwolf is actually the main villain instead of Darkseid. However, you shouldn't discount the dark side of the Moon's uncle, because Steppenwolf is immortal and has vast superhuman strength, speed, and endurance, capable of lifting up to 10,000 tons and jumping huge distances easily. He has superhuman reflexes and a high degree of invulnerability, which increases with his battle armor and allows him to resist most physical and energetic attacks. So while yes, they did manage to defeat him, it was still quite the battle. And at 8, Metallo. John Corbin is usually featured as either a willing volunteer for a surgery or a mortally wounded test subject that needs this surgery to save his life. Metallo first appeared in the Superman comic strip storyline The Menace of Metallo, which ran from the 15th of December 1958 to the 4th of April 1959. This procedure, whether willing or not, ends up turning John into a cyborg powered by a kryptonite heart, which I think you know what that means. While usually working as another supervillain's lackey, Metallo has the strength to go head to head with the Man of Steel, especially given that he has the strength of Superman and then weakens him with his heart when he's nearby. Metallo's robot body offers him a high degree of protection from physical and energy attacks as well. Among his enhanced abilities, he also no longer needs to eat, sleep, or breathe, and isn't that the dream? His brain is also sealed away inside a shielded alloy skull that has its own power supply, so trust me, I know. Sentient robots that want to kill are definitely not something to be trifled with. At least the timeline for Metallo isn't all that complicated. And at 7, Count Vertigo. Count Vertigo is the last descendant of the royal family that ruled over the small Eastern European country of Platlavia that was taken over by the Soviets and later became devastated by the Spectre. First introduced in World's Finest Comics number 251 from 1978, the original comic book version is much more interesting than his modernized TV show counterpart. Also, basically all of these characters have appeared on the show just because they're also some of the Green Arrow's most iconic villains, so I will be making comparisons. Count Vertigo first appeared in Star City, where he attempted to steal back the jewels his parents had to sell when they had escaped to England after the war. The victim of a hereditary inner ear defect that affects his balance, Vertigo has a small electronic device implanted into his right temple that compensated for this problem. Tinkering with the device, Vertigo learned that he was able to affect other people's balance as well, distorting their perceptions of what they would see, and basically they couldn't tell up from down, which he calls vertigo, even though vertigo is just the sensation of a room spinning when it's not, instead of like not knowing where you're going, whatever. But still, this is how he works in the comics, whereas on the TV show he was a dealer who made a substance known as vertigo that nearly gets Thea killed in a car accident because she was being dumb. Yet even though he's killed off in season 2, vertigo as a substance remains present throughout the rest of the show. I think it made its final appearance in season 6 though, but I'm not sure. And at 6, Mr. Mxyzptlk. Mxyzptlk possesses reality warping powers with which he enjoys tormenting Superman or just making life difficult because, you know, he's like a little sibling. His portrayal has been varied, with him being an outright supervillain in some instances and an anti-hero in others. But in most of Mx's appearances in DC Comics, he can be stopped only by tricking him into saying or spelling his own name backwards, which sends him back to the 5th dimension that he calls home and keeps him there for at least 90 days. That's not even 3 months, bro. Come on. However, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, he was changed to having a new requirement that needed to be met for him to leave. That would change each story, such as Superman getting him to paint his own face blue. So, Mx getting Superman to make Mx paint his face blue, like his own face. This is one of the few villains that actually uses Superman's other weakness, magic, against him, since most just resort to kryptonite. This guy has the ability to warp reality and do basically whatever he wants, and since he comes from the 5th dimension, he isn't bound by the laws of third-dimensional beings, whatever that means. But like, bro, what is with your name? Like, I get that it's supposed to be hard to say, so it's hard to say backwards, but like, come on. Cut a guy some slack. I talk about Five Nights at Freddy's all day. Okay, I don't have room in my brain for this.
At number 5, we've got a literal god of the Greek pantheon with Ares, the god of war. In an alternate universe in which Ares declared war against the entirety of existence, Batman stood with the rest of the Justice League in a battle that literally lasted for eons, until the sole combatants left in the entire universe were Ares and Batman, still standing through sheer willpower alone. After landing a blow that knocked Ares' magical helmet off, Batman was forced to put the helmet on to finally defeat and decapitate the god of war, leaving him the only survivor of this burned out universe. And while this version of Bruce Wayne would go on to become the Merciless, a bat-themed god of war from the dark multiverse, it still goes to show that the Batman is capable of taking down literal gods. Speaking of literal gods, we've got someone that's weirdly close enough with the infamous Batmite.
And at 4, General Zod. General Zod was first introduced in Adventure Comics number 283 from 1961 and is also a Kryptonian like Superman, therefore has the same powers, which makes him a pretty powerful adversary. It's like the whole conundrum of if you fought yourself, who would win? Or would you just keep fighting until you both collapse from exhaustion? However, what he has over Kal-El is experience. Being the leader of the Kryptonian military, Zod is an expert tactician and is trained in hand-to-hand combat. And while yes, they both pack a punch, knowing how to fight or predict your opponent's moves is also critical to winning. However, Zod's powers are often inferior to those of Superman, due to Superman being exposed to the yellow sun over the course of his entire life, while Zod typically only gets it for a short period of time before being returned to the Phantom Zone. This greater power combined with the superior control and experience with it gives Superman an edge over Zod's actual like fighting skills, so that he does end up losing more commonly than not, if ever. So sorry Zod. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Damien Darhk. Damien Darhk was the big bad for season 4 of Arrow, and ultimately was one of the most powerful villains Oliver had ever faced in the show, or even still has ever faced. Using a totem found on Lian Yu, because of course it was, everyone who dies around Damien can be absorbed as some form of mystical power that grants him plenty of different powers, much like those granted to Jedi through use of the Force. I'm not even kidding. Damien can stop people in their tracks, choke them, drain the life from them just by touching them, he has super strength, he can catch arrows midair with magic. Not to mention the team up in Legends of Tomorrow with Malcolm Merlyn and Eobard Thawne. Damien did ultimately eat the dust though at the end of season 4, when Oliver, with the positive vibes of an entire city behind him, ends up being able to overpower Dark's magic even after an entire city of deaths was powering him. Haven Rock's destruction was one of the turning points of the series, with tens of thousands of people getting killed in the explosion. Damien at this point was literally able to disintegrate arrows and bullets without even trying. Oliver shoots arrows at him and they just like turn into smoke in front of him, and Damien's like, oh, I didn't even mean to do that. Penultimately, in number 2, Darkseid. Darkseid was first introduced in Forever People number 1 and is the tyrannical ruler of Apocalypse and leader of the New Gods. As a new god, however, Darkseid is among the most powerful beings in the DC universe. His most well-known and utilized ability derives from the Omega effect, which allows him to blast Omega beams from his eyes. Omega beams are an intense form of basically heated energy that can either act as a concussive force to subdue an opponent, or as a disintegrating agent capable of eradicating organisms or objects from existence. Awesome. Some superpowered beings, such as Superman, have proven resistant to the beams, although Superman does it with a great deal of pain. The Omega beams can also resurrect fallen beings that have previously been killed by them, and Darkseid will use this sometimes if he wants to punish people who fail him, but they're too valuable to kill at the moment. Darkseid also has pinpoint control over this energy, and his unwavering aim allows him to just control the beams to go wherever he goes. They can travel in straight lines, they can bend, they can curve around corners, even pass through matter and other forms of energy, which just makes these already horrifying things absolutely terrifying. And finally, in at number 1, Doomsday. First appearing in Superman Man of Steel number 17 in 1992, Doomsday was invented to be a beast that would kill Superman, since writers were growing concerned about how other villains relied too much on their tech or brain power to try to beat Superman. This was probably also also to show that yes, even Superman can die, to give other heroes I guess something to fear, or I guess the readers something to fear. Doomsday is depicted as a monstrous, genetically engineered being from the depths of prehistoric Krypton. His creator imbued him with a few feelings, mostly hate and the desire for destruction, which, let's face it, same. But this led to him destroying worlds and eventually finding Earth, where he met Superman. Doomsday is the one who killed Superman in Kelly's favorite The Death of Superman storyline, and the big thing with Doomsday is his ability to evolve. Doomsday gradually becomes more invulnerable, if not injured beyond his ability to recover. Superman once used a sound gun to greatly discomfort him, but Doomsday's auditory canals closed up, making him impervious to the weapon next time. So basically anything that hurts or kills him basically won't do that a second time, which is absolutely absurd and definitely makes him one of Superman's greatest foes. And you know, he's the only one who killed him, so yeah, that's a number 1.